Hi everyone, welcome back to This Week at the Ed Greenwood Group. As we enter the second week of October, it's Thanksgiving here in Canada, which means my intrepid co-host Steve Bowden is off to be with his family, leaving me, Ed Greenwood, your Archmage, all alone this time around. So, happy Canadian Thanksgiving to everyone. Even if you're not Canadian or a farmer celebrating the harvest being brought in, Thanksgiving is all about family, hearth, and home. So, I wish a happy one to all of you. And from happy smiling faces and turkey for all, let me step out into the cold and menacing night and talk of Helma. Recently, I received this troubling letter from a Ms. Bev Freeman, who seems to be noticing all sorts of oddness of late. Dear Mr. Greenwood, it has come to my attention that strange things have been happening around the world recently, and Toronto seems to be one of the hot spots. I would like to request that you be on the lookout for matters that seem out of the ordinary, such as strange weather effects, lightning striking without a thunderstorm, people having unusual abilities, and sudden onsets of people collapsing, especially if these things happen in groups. I know that to many it would seem as if I am, bluntly, nuts, but I assure you that something is in fact going on. I first became aware of this when I noticed a pattern of deaths at an archaeological dig. People were ripped limb from limb, completely mutilated. The people at the scene put it down to wild animals. However, I was able to bribe an evidence clerk who showed me the crime scene photos. There were no animal prints. Something else killed all those people. Something else tore off parts of those people. Mr. Greenwood, I know full well that this all sounds insane. I honestly wish I was insane. If I was, then the world as we know it wouldn't be in danger. But I believe, in fact, I know, without a shadow of a doubt, that something horrible is going on. I am writing to you in the hopes that you will help me spread this knowledge to as many people as possible. Please, the more people who know, the better chance we have of stopping this before it's too late. And I am terribly afraid that it might be too late already. If I am right, then they may know that I know about them. My life may be in danger. Please, Mr. Greenwood, in the event that something happens to me, you may be the only person who can complete this task. You are too well known for them to try and get rid of you. You have a chance of surviving this. I apologize for dragging you into the spotlight and putting you in danger, but it's the only option I have. I suggest you let as many people as possible know. If enough people know, they can't get us all. Please, have people be on the lookout for other strange phenomena. Have them report it. Search through those reports for patterns, for hotspots. You may be able to track them that way. Please, Mr. Greenwood, please help me. Bev Freeman. Well, this letter is very troubling indeed, so I'm sharing it with you, as forewarned is forearmed. Well, unless you get your arms torn off, I suppose. But I will be, I have the feeling that there will be more of these sightings in the weeks to come. Whoa. Helma, wow. And that brings us to the Realms TEGG, that is, TEGG members, including me, the creator of the Forgotten Realms, at work in the Realms. Please, have a listen to this. From my Mert tale, all things through the bright flames. The fat, wheezing man in the floppy old swash-top boots and nondescript merchant's breeches, vest and jerkin squinted up the alley and then down the alley, mopped his brow with a voluminous and none too clean hand towel, and grunted, still too hot. A lizard, passing high on the walls across the alley, stopped and cocked its head as if listening, tasted the air with a long and vivid blue forked tongue, decided no food was in the offing, and went on its way. The fat man watched it go. It had been, as it happened, more than a century since the man who preferred to be known as Mert the Moneylender had last set boot in Ormpur. The place didn't seem to have changed all that much. The city of Saffron was still a place of damp heat, thanks to the strong sea breezes off the shining sea, though that meant it had fresher air and less dust than many other trade moots Mert had spent all too much time in hereabouts. Traders shivering up in the frozen far might dream of warmer climes, but he himself thought that anything south of Tethir tended to be too warm for one of his ample fundament. At least Ormpur was cleaner than most of what in his day had been called the cities of the sea breeze, and smelled less of rotting refuse. They liked their incense braziers here, hanging in small metal forests from ceilings, on chains, like everything else, from plants and lamps to scent cages. This particular alley he was standing in was drowned in deep shade, which was good, but from where he was, he could see bright sunlight lancing along cross streets all down it. The closest flood of light lit up the nearest city banner, a swath of rich purple, edge-trimmed in gold cord, displaying a golden saffron flower, and beneath it, picked out in gold thread, the motto of Ormpur, "All things through the bright flames." Those bright flames being saffron, of course. This wasn't an alley like the narrow, noisome, and usually slippery underfoot winding ways of Waterdeep. In Ormpur, an alley was any street too narrow for two saffron carts or trade wagons to pass each other, and most of them were either clad in cobbles, like the major streets, or surfaced in crushed rubble. And, presumably thanks to hungry lizards, even the rats seemed very few for a seaport. The non-human ones, at least. The other sort, Mert had, no doubt, could be found in profusion by those who weren't careful. This was a seaport, and it had a lock on Faerun's saffron trade, and most of its Nithar trade, too. And where there was such steady coin to be made, rats would be found. Himself, for instance. After all, he was here because... And that was as far as Mert got, before a blue and purple light blossomed out of nowhere, all around him, flared blinding bright, and then died away again, leaving the alley in deep shade once more, and entirely bereft of fat, wheezing outlanders in floppy sea boots. A snatch teleport. He'd been in Ormpur long enough to draw mayhap 20 breaths, and someone had caught him in a snatch teleport. What was Faerun coming to? Did nothing change as the centuries passed? Or had one of his long-time foes somehow outlasted the spell plague too? Mert looked around, blinked, and looked up. No spikes waiting to plummet, thankfully, and then down at his feet. He was apparently standing on a solid floor, with no signs of any seams that marked the outlines of a trapdoor. Well, that was a good beginning. He was in a room even gloomier than the alley he'd been taken from, thanks to its complete lack of windows, and the only light coming from a small, hooded oil lamp on a round, fat pedestal table in front of him that also held some fine wine, Gerol, by the looks of it, and a shapely blow-and-glass decanter. There was a chair drawn up to the table, and a pierce-patterned screen made up the center of the wall nearest it. The room offered nothing else, except a closed door, right behind him. Mert turned, opened it, and found his way blocked by a huge man in full plate armor, hefting what looked like a butcher's cleaver in one massive, gauntleted hand, and holding a loaded and ready-aimed handbow in the other. This impassive, hairy colossus gave him a sudden and impish grin. Mert sighed and slammed the door again. Turning back to face the room, he planted his old boots and stood there in sour silence. The rusty bracer on his right arm was an amulet, gift of Laryl, that could detect magic, and it was finally awake and telling him the screen was radiating strong magic, and that there was an even stronger magic in the darkness on the far side of it. He glowered at that unseen murk until a cultured female voice said gently out of it, "Come, sit down, have some draw, and let's talk. I intend no violence to you." "And who might ye be?" Mert asked warily, not moving. "The long-suffering wife of a fool I love very much," came the reply, "who happens to be High Aruk of the city." "And am I still in Ormpur?" "You are. Sit, Mert of Waterdeep. The wine is quite safe." Mert plucked up the chair, peered at it for barbs or poisoned needles, none, and took it well away from the table, over to the wall with the screen, but to one side of the patterned piercings. "Then ye must be Alace Jadrendra, and powerful in wizardry." "Yes, and yes. Moreover, I know why you're here. Please, don't stumble in your endeavor." "And how do ye feel about why I'm here?" "I sponsor Tail's Thaith, and Tailmonder thinks he controls my husband and the Watchlord. I do not disabuse him in that belief so long as he does my bidding, and I am an easy overlord to him. It is all quite cozy. However, a problem has arisen for me, and it's the source of the same problem you're here to deal with. A rival to Tailmonder has come to Ormpur, backed by interests from Shirtalar, who seeks to displace Tailmonder and the Thaith, and make his own Dark Wind the true masters of Ormpur. Those sponsoring him use him to buy the loyalties of noble houses of Waterdeep in sore need of coin, so he is your problem as well as mine. Our interests run together in this." "And so?" "And so, be aware that you shall be watched. I have a light hand, so light that Tailmonder does not believe I have any more hold over him than his unrequited infatuation with me lends me. So, you should not run afoul of me unless you do something terribly stupid, such as enlighten Tailmonder." Terribly as in fatal?" "You master linguistic nuance admirably, Mert, indeed. Yet I did not snatch you so rudely here to give you a warning, because to warn a man like you is to goad, not cow. I brought you here to let you know that if you ever need my aid in this endeavor of yours, you have but to say the word of Ardrim, and I shall act. Perhaps not as you might specify or prefer, but I shall step in, once and once only, so use that word wisely." The cultured, accented voice now held a clear note of farewell. "I thank ye," Mert told the screen quietly. "Of Ardrim I shall remember. It's been a pleasure, lady." "Ah, the old ways. I am flattered." And magic swirled and took Mert away, the Gerall untouched. And for more news of the Realms at TEGG, be sure to click the link below and sign up for the newsletter. Yes, a Realms newsletter. Hear it all here first. So, love big detailed fantasy settings? Well, the Realms isn't the only one I've created. There's also Storm Talons. And now, a short presentation about the Storm Talons setting on why is the Firefall called the the firefall. And what is this holiday firefrost that keeps even the worst of the worst in Tantalus obedient? Well, behold.
Storm Talons, the realms you're looking for. Do you know why the firefall is called the Firefall? Or why the holiday known as Firefrost is so revered there? Centuries ago, during the first heavy snows, there was a mighty conflagration in the sky. Some say it was the ancient dragons battling the gods for dominion. Others say it was the wrath of the gods who looked down upon us and were displeased. Whatever it was, it lit up the sky so brightly even those in far-off Cordrove could see it, but it did not remain in the sky. It plummeted to ground, destroying all that was, mountains, rivers, valleys, all gone, along with every living soul. It is said that even the Storm Talons themselves were burned away. All perished. The land became a sea of liquid fire and death. It threatened to break Asmer itself. But, as with most things, the land slowly healed. Over time, the earth cooled. The forests recovered, and the animals returned. So too did man. We rebuilt in this newly sculpted land and named it the Firefall, as it was the fire falling from the sky that allowed us to turn the tragedy of the past into a new future. And thus, Firefrost came into being, the time of year, during the first snows, where all of the firefall is in remembrance of all that was lost, and in gratitude for what we have now. Family, friends, another year survived, despite Skalon, despite Religor, and despite the mists. It is a time of feasting and rejoicing, and quiet reverie. So should you be new to these lands, and are traveling the first snows, gaze around you, and know that once, where you stood, all was molten devastation. Seek not to disturb others this day, but instead be thankful for all you have, no matter how meager it may be, for we never know when another fire could appear in the sky and take all that we have once again.
We'll have more glimpses of the history and lore of Storm Talons in the months and years to come. But at TEGG, we have more settings for you to enjoy. Next up, Folklore The Affliction. Folklore tales and games are set in the land of Kreml. Kreml is surrounded by nearly impassable mountains to the north, unexplored forests in the west, and dangerous seas to the east. Those few who come to Kreml do so by way of the South Road and the Church of the Crossroads. Kreml is a small country measuring about 100 miles from east to west and perhaps 60 miles north to south. Over the centuries, Kreml has been ruled by a handful of monarchs and royal families, mostly exiles from their own homelands. None of these have ever lasted for more than a century's time, each falling to hardship and tragedy in a few generations. Present-day Kreml has not seen the guiding hand of any central government in over 20 years. Each city has its own governance and its own garrison of watchmen. Guard patrols watch the roads, but are few and far between, and rarely venture more than half a day's travel from the cities for fear of being caught outside at night. The people of Kreml are simple folk, tormented by the supernatural forces at work within their kingdom. As such, they have become suspicious of outsiders. They have few tales of heroes in their local lore, but many stories of the things that threaten them. Of course, it's hard to stay positive when your land is filled with locations that have names like Dark Spire, Darken Bow, Bone Isle, and the Deadlands. Well, sign up for the newsletter at the link below to learn more about Folklore The Affliction and my impending folklore novel, The Whispering Skull. Well, if you're anywhere near Ottawa, the capital of Canada, in eastern Ontario, this upcoming weekend, CanCon will be upon us. If you can make it to the long-running genre convention, be sure to look for TEGG member Suzanne Church, who will be doing a reading in Salon B on Saturday at 5, on a panel on animal fantasy also on Saturday at 9, and leveling up your writing with formal courses on Sunday at 2 p.m. TEGG member Jeff Gander will be a panelist on the Writing for Games panel on Saturday at 3 p.m. TEGG member Gregory A. Wilson will be appearing on the panels The Illusion of History and They're More Like Guidelines, as well as giving a reading in Salon B. And TEGG member Leslie Donaldson will be participating on several panels. This is a fantastic convention, and you can meet a lot of great people there, not just from TEGG, but from all walks of fictional life. So, don't miss CanCon this coming weekend. And speaking of conventions, another one is coming up at the beginning of November, Gamehole Con in Madison, Wisconsin. This year, a lot of TEGG creatives are attending Gamehole Con, like me. I will be running my Mert adventures at the Sign of the Drowned Dragon and my all-new Forgotten Realms adventure, The Haunted Tomes of Durlusk, which is making its debut at Gamehole Con. Are those seatings full up? Well, worry not. The esteemed Jeff Gander of TEGG will also be running those adventures, so you can still grab a chair at the table for both, but not for long. Also in attendance at Gamehole Con are Folklore The Affliction lore guardian Nicholas Fife, Helma lore guardian Samantha Murphy, and Storm Talon's lore guardian Kat Jarrett. Special attendees from TEGG include the aforementioned Jeff Gander and Brian Goody of Iron Kingdoms fame. And if you can't get to either of those conventions, be not disappointed. There's always this week's giveaway! And this week's giveaway is all about Assassins and Rogues by Grey Shade by Gregory A. Wilson, and receive Not As They Appear by C.A. Jarrett and J.R. Jarrett absolutely free. Remember, Gregory A. Wilson will be appearing at CanCon this weekend, and C.A. Jarrett will be appearing at Gamehole Con. Be sure to check out both during this buy one, get one free giveaway. Link below. Yes, well, my time with you grows short as turkey calls to me, so I've just time to remind you to sign up for news about Folklore The Affliction, and a chance to win. Link below. And sign up for news about the Realms at TEGG, and, yes, a chance to win. Link below. If you have questions for me, go to Ask the Archmage at this link. Well, I'll be back next week with Steve Bowden to bring you more of This Week at the Ed Greenwood Group, where creatives never stop having fun. So, farewell for now.